Hi, and welcome to episode 86 of the Dinner Sisters podcast. We're two sisters taking on the nightly challenge of dinner. I'm Kate Schultz, living and working in Rhode Island. I'm a passionate cook and recipe collector, always thinking about my next meal. And today, honestly, thinking a little bit of a hot toddy for this stuffed up nose that I've got. So there you go.
'Tis the season. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And I'm Betsy Wallace. I live, work, and raise a family in Atlanta, Georgia. I love dinner time, but can always use help planning and cooking for my family of 5. I've got 3 kids. They're 5, 7, and 9.
Yeah. Our goal of this podcast, cook a little better, learn a little bit about food, and most importantly, figure out what the heck to have for dinner. Here's how this works. Like every week, we have 3 recipes that we cooked and reviewed from popular food blogs, internet chefs, like anywhere I can find a recipe. We'll have all the recipes we talked about, tips, the smorgasbord, and a shopping list on our website at dinnersisters.com. So once you hear us talk about this, just head on over there and we've got all the details for you. And if you like to get things sent to you in your inbox, join our newsletter. I write it every week, send it out, and you kind of get a little preview of the episode.
All right, Kate, so this week's recipes were an Instant Pot butternut squash risotto with blue cheese from Instant Pot Eats, Instant Pot lentil bolognese sauce by Plates and Pairings, and Instant Pot vegetarian chili with sweet potatoes, black beans, and quinoa from Well Plated.
What could be the theme? I have no idea.
They definitely didn't put it in the name of all of the recipes.
As the first 2 words. Yeah. I mean, other than that obvious thing about the Instant Pot, I did think this week, as the weather gets cooler, we should, amp up the Instant Pot a bit because it is such a good tool for like those warming dishes, right? Like a braise or a stew or a soup. But I was like kind of stuck in a bit of a rut thinking about the Instant Pot and actually like meat because it does so well with these large, tough cuts of that I like to cook, like or a chicken thigh, right? Or a pork shoulder, like those kinds of things. And I thought, all right, well, let's think about something else. And here we are, Vegetarian Instant Pot Week.
Yeah, I like this idea because, just for the same reasons. And I think we're all trying to incorporate a little bit more vegetarian-based meals into our dinner plans. I know you and I talk about that sometimes. And so having some Instant Pot recipes for that, it would just be really nice. And so I was also happy to cook this week. Okay, what do we have first? First up.
Well, first up is Instant Pot butternut squash risotto with blue cheese from Instant Pot Eats. Who does not like a risotto? I mean, maybe someone doesn't. I don't understand that. I mean, live your truth, but honestly, to me, it's one of those consummate comfort foods, right? And I actually like it so much, I don't even mind stirring over a stove because you can just, you sit there and you add more broth and you stir and you broth and you stir. But like also sometimes on a weeknight, it's nice to have a little extra time to do things while your rice is cooking. I would like to say more often than not, am not on Instagram, but sometimes that's what I use the time for. So anyway, to make this, it's pretty simple. You just chop up an onion and butternut squash and a little garlic. You start with your Instant Pot on saute, and then you just cook your garlic and onions in a little olive oil until they're soft and like smell amazing. You throw in your rice and cook for, a little bit just to kind of get that rice toasty. You deglaze the pot with a little bit of white wine, and then you add your warm vegetable stock. Put the lid on. Make sure your vent is closed and cook it for 60 minutes on high. When it's done, you do a little manual release. So like release it right away and then stir in a bit of blue cheese. You serve it with extra blue cheese on the side and, on the top and some toasted walnuts. I mean, this was like a big bowl of comfort for me. Hard to go wrong. How did everyone like it, Betsy?
So we've made at least one other risotto, right? We made that big herby risotto.
That's right, yes.
In the summer, which was super successful for me, and I loved it. And I felt like this was a nice kind of heading into winter fall risotto. Because that blue cheese and walnuts, I never would have done that. I mean, I was very surprised by this recipe. And I liked it. I was a little bit nervous about how the blue cheese would go over with everyone in my family. Enough. So I did kind of pull some aside. I mean, I think that's easy to kind of pull some aside.
Oh, yeah.
Mix in a little bit. sprinkle some more on top if you want. Sprinkle the walnuts on top. Yeah, I did serve this with some leftover chicken, Kate.
So much for the vegetarian Instant Pot.
Yeah. So I just, I don't know.
Fair enough.
I mean, I know risotto is like a thing you can have as a meal, but I just get a lot of complaining about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is on the light side of a meal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but it was good. Yeah. So everyone like tasted it and had it, and I thought it was good. I'm not sure, like, for my family, it was a super great fit, but I liked it. What did you think?
Yeah. I say for us, this is one of our like favorite foods to make. James loves rice generally. And then risotto is creamier rice, which to him is just like a better kind of rice. I mean, congee, which is just like rice made the most creamy, is like also amazing. So, blue cheese, another one of his favorite things. So for him, this was actually delicious. I made it for a Saturday lunch, which he and I are usually like hanging out around that time. Like we're watching a little TV, we're kind of chit-chatting, that sort of thing. But it was like 6 minutes. Yeah. So it was a nice lunch meal because it wasn't a lot of cooking. I could just like hang out while it was like Instant Potting. I really like the flavors. Stirring in the blue cheese, I thought added a nice savory note. Yeah. I'm not sure. Your mileage may vary, and your audience here, but I almost wonder if people would even know that there was like quote unquote blue cheese in it if you didn't tell them.
Yeah, I kind of thought
because it added like a savory note to it. It wasn't like particularly funky at the amounts that they recommended.
Yeah, I topped mine too with the blue cheese. So I think by the time I was done with mine, it was pronounced, but I think I liked it that way because I don't often get blue cheese and I like to have blue cheese. So I was like excited for that. But no, I agree with you. I think you could, if you weren't worried about fussy kids, you could do it and be confident that no one would be like, whoa, what's this crazy rice you got?
Right. Yes. It did not make it super blue cheese funky tasting, but it just like added that like umami bit to it. I mean, don't ever sneak ingredients into people's foods. Like let them know that there's dairy in it. Like we're not advocating that. But I thought it was nice. And you know what? I did the toasted walnuts, which I may not have always done. That was extra delicious. Love that little bit. And honestly, it made a ton of risotto, more than we could ever eat in a meal. But, honestly, like it reheated fine.
Yeah.
Is it as delicious as like day one risotto? Of course not, right? You got to kind of like maybe put a little water in there, loosen it up. But, I don't know, it's still delicious. And honestly, one day I made it into little patties. You ever do like a fried rice patty thing?
I did the same thing because I did the risotto the first time. I kind of was looking around online, like, what do I do with all this leftover risotto? Because I feel like it's a thing when you make it.
Right.
And so I sort of did the same thing the second day with the little leftovers I had, which
I will say the texture wasn't the best risotto texture I've ever had. I get a much better on the stovetop. So, like, I hesitate to give it a full 5 out of 5, but this is like a, 3.5, 4 stars for me. I really like the butternut squash thing. Love the blue cheese. So, I mean, I'll probably make this again.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this too. This, and maybe for me, this is something, I could make if I had friends over for lunch or something like that.
Right.
That'd be good. So, yeah.
All right.
Nice. All right. Next up, we have Instant Pot lentil bolognese sauce by Plates and Pairings.
Yeah, a bolognese sauce can be such a long, slow cooking situation, especially if you're dealing with meat. It's meant to be simmered for a long time, and the meat gets really tender, and you get this like delicious savory flavor to it. But honestly, even if you're not doing meat, like the bolognese can take a long time because you've got all these things to cook, hence the Instant Pot, which I thought was brilliant for this. So to make an Instant Pot version of this lentil bolognese, you saute some onions, carrots, and celery that are finely chopped, add in some finely chopped mushrooms and garlic, and then you also, let that brown in things, and then you add in a little tomato paste, let that cook a bit. Then add in a bit of red wine. Use that to deglaze your pan. And then the rest of the ingredients go in. So you've got tomato sauce, you've got lentils, some dried thyme, oregano, and a bay leaf. And you cook this on high for 20 minutes. Let natural release, which means you just kind of like let the Instant Pot sit for 10 minutes. And then you manually release it. Before you serve it, you add in a splash of balsamic vinegar to kind of punch up the flavor a bit. So Betsy, how did a lentil pasta sauce go over?
All right, so I will say when we got my kids were a little suspect of this week, Kate.
I do my best. It's going to be a lot of beans, no matter what you do.
But I think they ate it. I wouldn't say anyone was like, "This is the best of my life," but they like doused it with Parmesan cheese and ate it when they talked about their days at school. So
okay,
I think that's like successful, right?
Yeah.
It's all good stuff in there. It was like a nice vegetarian kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And my kids
got them some
like
fiber.
And some fiber. I mean, and they kind of like it vegetarian meal. They're kind of proud of that. So that's fun. But yeah, I mean, they definitely put like just a lot of cheese on this. I will say that I had, I did the kitchen. I took those cooking class lesson things. The kitchen is the website, the kitchen. And one of the things was undicing and chopping and all these little things and holding your knife correctly for a dice and a chop. And I was thinking, look at all these opportunities I have to.
It was a lot of chopping.
Do all this chopping. So that actually, I felt a little better about my onion dicing. So I got that like nice and taken care of. But then I was thinking, I was like, I wonder if I could have put like the carrots into my mini food processor.
Probably.
You know what I mean? By the time I got to like, I think it actually said to mince the carrots or something, Kate. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're going after the mushrooms and the garlic and the celery. It's just, I mean, it was a fair amount of chopping. If you like chopping, like if it's kind of meditative and that's like a fun thing for you to be doing, like this could be like a nice, relaxing thing for you to do. But if you're in a rush and you're trying to get dinner on the table, I have to say I was a little like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it's funny because like I also said to myself, like, this is taking longer than I thought. So a bolognese sauce, which if you're not familiar with them, is like the minced meat with minced vegetables. The whole thing cooks for like at least several hours. So you spend time prepping it and then you spend time just letting that stuff simmer. So like, even the lentil one, because you're going to be chopping all those vegetables, is kind of a time investment. So, I don't disagree with you. I think it was a lot. I also think like as your knife skills get better, you're not going to be spending as much time. But like not everyone needs to like,
have super
sit there and have super knife skills. Yeah. I don't know. It's probably blasphemy. People would probably say like you can't put it in the food processor, but I just think like.
Oh no, for sure not? You can though. I mean,
right.
I was, as I'm chopping these little things, I'm like,
yes,
God, I just wish I had that little mini food processor out. If I had thought about that before I started this. Mm-hmm. But yes, I can tell how, if you're a purist, that would maybe not, you could not be into
and
it.
I will also say, like, I enjoyed this with a bit of cheese myself. Mm-hmm. I thought that, like, I was putting cheese on this too. So, like, hey, man, like, definitely do this. So the other thing that happened is my Instant Pot didn't seal. Have you ever had this happen before? So it didn't seal. It just kept simmering. And all of a sudden I kind of looked up and I was like, why is it still venting? Because Instant Pot, when it heats up, then it vents, and then the seal pops and then you don't hear any of the steam.
Yeah.
And I looked up and I was like, I hear all this steam. And something happened. Like either I didn't, get it the right way or whatever. So it was kind of like evaporating all this sauce.
Oh, no.
For like 15 minutes.
Ooh.
I was like,
did you open it back up?
So I opened it back up. I looked at it. I was like, didn't even think about the evaporation. Sealed it back up again. Let it go for another 15 minutes. But it hadn't been pressure cooking for 15 minutes before then. Wasn't done. Had to reseal it a second time.
Oh, my gosh.
Cook it for another 5 minutes. It was like I started this at, I think, a little late, like 6.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, well, I'll have a snack. I'll just have a late dinner. It's fine.
Right.
And then it was like 8:30 by the time
my
I
gosh.
ate. And I was like, this is the end of my life. I'm so tired. I'm so hungry. I had like 2 bites. I took a picture of it because, I do that for the website and stuff. But
Yeah.
So it wasn't until like the second day that I really had a good plate of it. Yeah, it was crazy. I don't know what happened.
And
there.
that's like a little bit
It's
of
rough.
a danger pot with a danger with the Instant Pot is that it's
Right.
not super easily correctable.
Right. And this is another example, kids, of an Instant Pot is not actually instant.
No.
The lentils are cooking for 20 minutes. Then you have to natural release for 10. So now we're at 30. You've been chopping for 20 minutes. So, I mean, these recipes, you really do have to pay attention to time. And I would just say that for people who think this would be something they'd like to make. That said, I thought the flavors were great. I think the mushrooms added a ton of flavor to this. For me, this is like one of those healthy sauces I can keep in my freezer.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned this too. If I wanted to thaw it and make a quick meal that I know would be like healthy and delicious.
Yeah.
Like this is definitely one of those. Very freezer friendly. I know it's packed full of vegetables. I mean, for that reason, I give this a 4 out of 5,
Yeah.
And I ate it for work lunches. I thought it was pretty good.
Oh, good. Yeah. I thought it was pretty good too. I mean, at the end of the day, I was thinking this hits a lot of notes for me, like a lot of good things in here. It's very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It made it would freeze well. It makes an easy dinner once you're through the cooking. I think if you batch cook this,
Yeah, this would be a great batch cooking. Like make this on a Saturday or Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you've got that for the rest of the week.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, so our last recipe this week is Instant Pot Vegetarian Chili with sweet potatoes, black beans, and quinoa by Well Plated.
I mean, who doesn't love a chili this time of year? So this chili is like a vegetarian version of it, but it's got a whole bunch of things in there, which kind of make this sweet and spicy stew. And to make it, you chop up an onion, a couple of sweet bell peppers, a couple of sweet potatoes, and lots of garlic. Saute the onions until translucent in your Instant Pot. And then you add in the sweet potatoes, garlic, a little bit of chili powder, some chipotle chili powder, and cumin. Let that get nice and fragrant, and then you add in the vegetable broth, your quinoa, and tomato sauce. You cover and seal your Instant Pot and cook on high for 8 minutes. Manually release it right away, pop the seal, and then stir in the beans. And it's 2 cans of beans, 1 can of kidney beans, and 1 can of black beans. And you let it stand for about 10 minutes to thicken, and that's it. You're all set. How'd this go, Betsy? What'd you think?
So I did for this one, like I was talking about last week or a couple weeks ago in Root Veg, I put my Instant Pot on the ground or on the floor.
Jeez.
In the kitchen again.
Such a hazard.
Yeah, it's probably not super safe. But the kids were kind of in there with me cooking, and it sort of starts the same way with the sauteing a little bit and then putting the ingredients in. You kind of dump the cans of beans in and things like that, and it was very it kind of lent itself for that kind of cooking, to that kind of cooking. So we all made this together, stone
Very
soup
fun.
method. Yes. And then, put it on, and it was great. So I had like avocados, I had pickled red onions, I had, what else? We had some tortilla chips I served this with and some sour cream. So we really sort of loaded this up.
You chilied it up.
We really chilied this up, yeah. We liked the quinoa in it. When I first opened it up and took it out, it seemed like it was really separated.
Okay.
Like the quinoa really had kind of sunk to the bottom. But, as it cooled off and everything, it kind of mixed up. And by the second day, too, I had leftovers the next day. Everything was very well blended, which was great. Ryan actually does not love chili,
Oh, okay.
Is not a huge chili fan. So he was saying, so we don't make chili. I'm not like a chili cook-off person.
Right.
We don't eat it a whole lot. We don't feel deeply about chili. And so he was like, you know what? If I get a chili craving or the handful of times we have chili a year, he was like, this could be our chili recipe. I don't think we would need meat.
Oh, nice. That's a ringing endorsement, actually.
It was, yeah. So I was like, huh, you're right. And he was like, this is perfectly satisfying. Like, this kind of gives us the chili, you know, and I felt healthy and it didn't feel so heavy because sometimes those chilies can feel pretty heavy. So, yeah.
They can. And you know, so I was like, I'm going to love this recipe. When I put it in the queue for the episode, and I was super excited. I cooked it all up and I took a bite and I was like, oh, I just like didn't like it at first.
Oh,
I don't know what my problem was, what my dealio was. And I was like, maybe I'm just not hungry. Maybe it needs more salt. I have no idea. Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to throw away this entire recipe because I don't care for it. James loves a sweet potato. He loves a bean situation. And if I don't tell him it's quinoa, he kind of forgets.
Oh, that's
right. So he's like, hipster quinoa, not so sure about it. And then he eats it and he's like, I kind of like this. What is that? Quinoa. Oh, okay. So
yeah.
So he ate a bunch of it. I took it to work lunch because I was like, get over yourself. Like, I don't know what your deal is. I don't know if I was like crabby or whatever. It was fine. It just never really got me.
Huh.
Which is really funny to me. I was like,
yeah,
I should like this. This should be good. I don't know. So
and you just weren't feeling it.
I just wasn't feeling it, but James liked it. I would recommend it to other people. I think a lot of people would like this recipe.
Yeah.
That sweet potato black bean combo, everybody loves. The only thing I might change to it is I felt like when you get canned kidney beans, I feel like sometimes they're not super soft, and I love a soft bean in a chili. So I would like open up your can of kidney beans, test one. Are they like, because sometimes they don't, kidney beans are a tough cooker. They take a long time to cook.
Yeah.
So like pull one out of your can. Do they taste soft? If they do, you can put it in at the end. If they don't, I would actually put it in with sweet potatoes. And I kind of had wished I had done that. Maybe that's what it did. I've got a thing. I don't like an undercooked bean. It just really funny. Turns things off for me.
You know, what's funny is I only use the black beans in this because that's what I had.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just kind of forgot about it till right now. I didn't even put it in my notes. Because I was like, oh, it's probably just the same with the kidney and the black beans.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
It's not a big swap. But yeah. So I wasn't bothered by the kidney beans.
I mean, maybe I've just got a weird kidney bean thing. Would that be surprising to anybody? Of course not. Of course not.
Right.
So who knows? Maybe I didn't like, let me be very clear. I would give this like a high 3 out of 5 with a caveat. Like if these ingredients sound good to you, you will probably love this recipe.
Yes. And it's okay to not like everything.
I know.
Here we go.
I don't know what my deal is. How about you? What did you rate it?
I'm giving it a high 4 out of 5 because I thought for our family, and maybe it was because we loaded it up with all the toppings and things like that, but we just thought this could be, for having chili every once in a while, we could just use this recipe. So that's good.
All right, Betsy, what are our winners? I'm going to tell you mine.
Okay.
The risotto. Loved it. So good. Yeah.
I'm going with the chili that you didn't like. But that was my winner.
We're kind of like on opposite ends today. We're just like, that's all right.
Yeah.
Can't agree all the time. If any of these recipes sound good to you, make sure to check out our show notes and grocery list at dinnersisters.com. There you'll find links to all the recipes, any tips or techniques we talked about, and, all those little tidbits that we get along the way. If you'd like to chat more with us, please ask to join our Dinner Sisters Facebook group. We're at Dinner Sisters Podcast. You just type that into your Facebook line and we're right there.
All right, Kate, before we head to the smorgasbord today, we're taking a break. Okay, so in the smorgasbord today, we thought we might talk about some other podcasts that we are enjoying. Kate, you're up first. What do you have?
So mine is a podcast, but a specific episode that I really, really loved. So in case you haven't listened to Splendid Table yet, get on it. I know some of our listeners are like longtime fans. So if you are, not talking to you, but Splendid Table has been doing some fun episodes lately. And one that they did was recently about Japanese home cooking. So Japanese cooking, I should say, has kind of the stereotype, which is it's about like sushi, about fancy foods, about omasake tasting menus and things like that. When really, I mean, they're just like you and I talk about all the time. There's the foods that people actually cook for themselves for dinner. They've had a long day. You and I were just talking that we each had a pretty long day tonight, right? Like, what did we make for dinner? Sure wasn't hand-rolled sushi.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So the fun thing about the recipe, and this is Japanese home cooking, it's episode 694. They just released it a couple weeks ago, so you should be able to find it easily. If you're interested, talks a lot about like the processed foods that Japanese folks eat, this idea that convenience stores have really delicious food, and just some other bits and bobs about Japanese home cooking. It was really fun and a peek into the real lives, not the stereotypical lives or the fetishized lives of people in another country, but actually like what they do. And I thought it was just really, really very interesting and intriguing. And Betsy, a little bit of a preview to an episode that's going to come up in actually a couple months, which is the Japanese curry blocks.
Yeah, that was a recipe. Was it that? Where did that come from? The New Yorker?
Well, I think this one was the New York Times.
New York Times. Okay. Yes, I'm excited to dig into those a little bit. That'll be fun. My podcast recommendation is just kind of a little fun. Eater, which is eater.com, is a website, and they have lots of food journalists, and they cover restaurants and the food industry generally. They don't do as much
chefs a little bit.
Chefs, yeah, they don't do as much like home cooking as they just follow the rest of it. So a lot of things I like, they'll release like, 10 each. They have just Eater correspondents in a lot of the major cities. And
right.
So they'll have like best places to go to brunch in Atlanta and that kind of thing. So they have the Eater Digest, which is their new updated. It used to be called the Eater Upsell. And they have 2 co-hosts on there. And it's just kind of this like fun overview of food and restaurant and eating trends, I would say, and some scandals and some gossip and some like funny things that are happening and headline making things that are happening. And I just think it's kind of a fun listen. It's not too serious. They don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
And it's always very current. Every week they're kind of talking about like kind of current events in the food world. So I found that one to just be a little like a fun car ride podcast.
Yeah, if you want to listen to something like a little bit light, a little bit chatty, it's definitely one of those podcasts. I agree. It's fun and a bit of like inside baseball too into the food world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just fun.
So Betsy, the last one I want to share is actually like not a spin-off, but like part of the Splendid Table universe, let's say. And it's Melissa Clark is doing a new podcast, which I think is super fun. She is like one of those names in the food world, especially for home cooking and dinners, which I think is great. And she's doing a new podcast, which is like a cook along. So she's going to make a meal and you cook the meal along with her while she's doing it. It's like real-time cooking podcast. I've not listened to it. I'm dying to hear it because the concept intrigues me, right? I mean, can you imagine you and I doing a cook-along podcast?
No, I cannot. And we're just going to let Melissa Clark do that and not go there.
Your kids wandering in. Wandering. The dogs. Yeah.
Yes.
James randomly turning on sports. Yeah. None of this would be great. Let's just put it that way.
No.
So she just started putting them out. I'm really excited to see what she ends up doing. And listeners, if you guys end up listening to her, let us know. We'll all talk about it next time.
So coming up next week, hey, we've got Pasta Week. It's fun.
Yes.
I'm not sure we've ever done one.
You know what? It was funny when I was thinking about this episode. I was like, oh, why haven't we done pasta? So we're doing it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. All right. That's what's for dinner this week. See you next time on The Dinner Sisters. We'll save a spot at the table for you.
Would you like a little dinner in your inbox every week? Subscribe to our newsletter by going to our website at dinnersisters.com. We've got show notes there and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. Got some dinner ideas? Definitely send us an email at dinnersisterspodcast@gmail.com or get a hold of us on Facebook or Instagram. Slide into our DMs at Dinner Sisters Podcast. Lastly, as per usual, if you like what you're hearing, please review and subscribe and maybe tell a friend. That's how people get to know us. Thanks and happy eating.